Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everybody to today's webinar, Windows of Opportunity, Reduce Costs in Bird Collisions with Energy Efficient Retrofits. It's wonderful to have you all here. We're excited to present a little bit more on this fantastic opportunity with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. Just as a quick agenda going through today, we're going to start off, I'll introduce everybody really quick and then run through the U.S. Department of Energy's Renew America Schools program, give a little overview of the work that we do, talk a little bit more about the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. I'll hand it over to them and then get into a Q&A and then wrap it up with some resources and announcements. So today we are joined by Andrea Swiatoka with the Renew America Schools program within DOE, as well as Brian Smith and Joelle Gehring from the Fish and Wildlife Services Migratory Birds program. So we're excited to hear a little bit more from them about the opportunities where our two programs can intersect. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Andrea to talk a little more about the Renew America Schools program.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. Welcome, everyone. For those that I haven't gotten to meet over the last couple of years or haven't previously joined a webinar, as Isaac mentioned, I'm Andrea Swiatoka. I have the privilege of leading the Renew America Schools program for the Department of Energy. I just want to start by sort of framing the challenge that we often talk about in K-12 public schools and really what our program and goals are trying to help solve. So many of you probably know that there's over 100,000 K-12 public schools. And based on some of the reports from the 2021 State of Our Schools report, as well as the Civil Engineering Infrastructure Report card, it had stated that 50% of the schools require major upgrades, earning schools a D+ in that 2021 Infrastructure Report card. It is a couple years old at this point, obviously, but really what we've seen is not much has changed. We continue to want to make improvements, and certainly all of you are doing some great work at the local level, state level, and really what can our role be at the federal level. There's an estimated $85 billion annual shortfall in maintenance and capital planning, and I will say as the numbers continue to evolve, that number is likely lower and continues to probably be above 100 billion at this point. Capital funding is 37% lower in high poverty districts, and we know that energy consumption is the second highest operation expense for schools. If we can go to the next slide, with that sort of framing of the challenge, through the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Renew America Schools program was formed. This is largely a competitive grant program that can fund energy efficient projects and renewables at K-12 public schools. We received $500 million, and we've received that over 5 fiscal years from FY22 to 26. We have gone out with announcements and selections for the funding of FY22 through 25. But we do have a 5th and final year of funding with the FY26 funds. So we do anticipate opening another round of applications in 2025. Through this funding, we can make improvements, repairs, and renovations to help reduce energy costs that lead to improved teacher and student health and achieve energy savings. And, we're really excited with the 40 recipients that we are currently working with and looking forward to that 3rd round of recipients in 2025. Again, this is really dedicated to K-12 public schools, so those local educational agencies, and we are looking to prioritize schools that need improvements, that have a high free and reduced price lunch, are potentially in rural locations, and are also looking to leverage private sector funds. We go to the next slide. It looks like, sorry, I'm just reading the chat real quickly. There are slides that are advancing. I know we can see them on our end, so if you're not able to see them, I would suggest signing off and signing back on, and hopefully that solves it. One of the a couple of the goals of the program is to facilitate substantial additional involvement. We mentioned prioritizing schools with high needs. Using federal funds is wonderful, but it does create quite an administrative burden. So we are always looking for creative ways to help reduce that. We do consider it actually a cooperative agreement, meaning that we stay substantially involved and are with you from the very beginning to the very end of the project, and really hoping to build enduring capacity in those LEAs to maximize impact equitably. we go to the next slide. Here, and these are all on our website, but just wanted to give you a sense of who and where we have funded. Again, the names of the actual LEAs and the recipients are on our website, but this gives you a sense of the spread across the country and the states. This is from our first round, 22-23 Renew America Schools grant, the 2024, the most recent one that was announced back in August, as well as a smaller technical assistance funding opportunity, the 2023 Energy Class Prize. And so that's what the map is representing here. If we go to the next slide, in addition to the Renew America Schools program, wanted to just highlight a few other opportunities for schools to take advantage of through the Department of Energy. So another program to consider is the Efficient and Healthy Schools program. This is a free technical assistance opportunity. The links, and when we post this website, to our website, you can find them at the bottom for the Efficient and Healthy Schools. This aims to improve energy performance, reduce carbon emission, and promote a healthy learning environment in schools. It provides both technical assistance, as I mentioned, as well as recognition for exemplary school improvements. And this is in partnership with Department of Education and EPA. If we go to the next slide, this mentions some of the TA and recognition cycles. So really trying to meet you where you're at. If you're at the very beginning stages, still looking to assess and benchmark, there's that data detective category that might be the right fit for you. If you're looking for more scaling and sustained commitment, maybe you've made some improvements and are looking to do more, you might be down in that bottom left-hand corner. So a wide variety of opportunities. And again, there's an annual recognition program that is announced every spring. We go to the next slide. I wanted to share a different opportunity. Embedded within the Efficient and Healthy Schools program is sort of the program that we ran. And again, these are all programs that are interconnected within the Department of Energy. Is called the Energy Class. So this is the Energy Champions leading the advancement of sustainable schools, or we call it Energy Class for short. And the training aims to provide school districts practical knowledge and resources around energy infrastructure projects that reduce utility costs and create healthier learning environments. Over 35 hours are posted if you click on that training and resource, and you'll see the word Energy Class. This is all free and available. There are 7 different sort of sections, starting with fundamental building science, then moving into benchmarking, and you'll see the list below. Both the recording is available, as well as the presentation itself. You can sort of self-select, watch in the order that is appropriate for you. Or if you are looking for more experience in a particular area, or you can also just work your way through all 35 hours. Let's go to the next slide. And this just gives you an idea of what those 7 training topics are. So there are fundamental building science, benchmarking and energy management, indoor air quality, procurement strategies, resilience, stakeholder engagement, and business communication skills. And within each of those, there's anywhere from 2 to 4 presentations available. Next slide, please. An additional opportunity within DOE is what we call the Better Buildings program. And this really has 2 parts to it. You could join the Better Buildings Challenge or the Better Climate Challenge, each slightly different. If you're interested in looking for your school district to reduce their energy intensity by at least 20% over the next 10 years, Better Buildings Challenge might be a great opportunity for you. If maybe you've achieved that or interested in that and also looking to be a little more ambitious and consider your greenhouse gas emissions, Better Climate Challenge might be a great opportunity for you. So this is looking to reduce that GHG emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions, by at least 50% within that 10-year, and set an energy efficiency target as well. By committing to both of those, you do get access to direct technical assistance through this program. Let's go to the next slide, please. And these are just opportunities that you can join the challenge, again, depending on where you're interested in and the goals that you have set or want to set for your school district. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues at the Fish and Wildlife. We're excited to be here today. I think one of the things that interests us at the Renew America Schools program is our ability to fund window and door replacements, and it's a big part of that energy efficiency component. Again, we're working with 40 recipients and hope to continue to work with more school districts, and we thought this would be a great opportunity to bring in fish and wildlife. And as you think about those energy efficient and window replacements and door replacements, how can you take into consideration and the impact to the birds? And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Brian and Joelle to take us through.
Thank you very much. And I'm hoping you can see my screen right now, slide presentation. Great. Thank you. And thank you very much for the invite to be here today. And we're excited to share this news. And I know I'm personally always looking for opportunities to be efficient with what we do, you know, both meeting the needs of bird conservation and energy efficiency and well-being of our students and our staff and the other employees and buildings. And this is a really neat opportunity to meet many of those goals. And so I'm excited to share it with you today. And so I'll be giving the first part of the presentation, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague for the last part of the presentation. So why birds? You know, I think many of us on this call have positive memories of interactions with birds, and you're not alone. 96 million people watch birds in the United States, and this is based on some research that was recently conducted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And 77% of those people spent money on that hobby. And so this is a lot of people are engaged and they're spending money on this important hobby. And it's a diverse hobby in that it includes many different ages, income levels, education levels, races, and really across the country. So in summary, people enjoy birds. And they also do not enjoy hearing that thud on the outside of their glass. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Birds are a part of our lives. They're around us all the time when we let the kids out to recess, when we walk the dogs, when we take our kids to soccer practice, when we walk to the cars in the morning. They are around us, and we affect them while they affect us as well. And so we may think of our urban areas as not, or our school areas, or business areas as not really bird habitat, but in truth, they are around us all the time. And we can have a positive impact on their existence. So we have seen a significant decrease in the numbers of birds over the last 50 years. We've lost almost 30% of our bird populations in the United States. And that has affected some groups of birds more than others, specifically the migratory birds. So the migratory songbirds have really suffered significant losses in the last 50 years. And a part of that, just a small part of that, is the loss of birds to collisions. And birds are colliding with lit structures and with glass structures. And that is involved in about a little bit more than 1 billion birds per year in the United States. Most of those collisions are occurring at our homes and high and low-rise buildings. Many of us think about high-rise buildings. Well, you think about, skyscrapers in Chicago or New York. And while those are they definitely are engaged in bird collisions, most of our collisions are occurring at our homes and at our low-rise buildings, like our schools and our office buildings. And so it is an issue that affects us and that we can have a positive impact on. So why are birds colliding? These are amazing organisms, and I'll try not to talk too much about birds. I love birds, but I do want to point out that while they can navigate, a couple months after hatching from an egg, they can navigate from north of the Arctic Circle all the way to South America, really incredible feats that they're able to accomplish. They do struggle with glass, and they tend to see reflections in the glass as habitat they can use or sky that they can fly through. Reflections create the illusion of habitat or openings that they can fly through. But of course, we know that they are obstacles and collision hazards. So we have the daytime collision risk of reflections, and then we have the nighttime collision risk. And that's where we have birds that are attracted into lit facilities or lit structures. So for example, the building that you see on the right, a low-rise building, an educational institution that has bird-friendly glass, but they light it up at night. And so they're taking care of one of the hazards for migratory birds, but still leaving it lit and illuminated and wasting a bit of energy in the process and interfering with our viewing of the night sky. So this is really a two-pronged approach where we need to make the glass visible to birds, and we need to darken the lights or minimize the lights where they're actually needed in order to reduce the risk to migratory birds, both of which have energy conserving and energy efficiency implications. So we're going to talk about the energy efficiency implications in a second. But first, let's talk about how do we go about making glass visible to birds? Well, we have some very low cost to no cost options to do this, and a wide range of aesthetics and of cost investment and benefits. So let's start off with some of the simple ones, and the most simple being low to no cost, a 2-inch by 2-inch pattern. So why 2-inch by 2-inch? Because if we go any bigger, these little hummingbirds think that they can fly between the dots. And that, of course, is a collision risk. So we found that 2 inches by 2 inches as a pattern is the most effective. And this can be accomplished using stickers or stripes or films, Zen curtains, soap, paint. I'll show you what a Zen curtain is in a minute. But whatever we do, we need to make sure that this is on the exterior surface of the glass and in a 2-inch by 2-inch pattern. So I mentioned a Zen curtain or an Acopian, a bird curtain or a paracord curtain, whatever it is. This is paracord hanging down about 3 inches apart. It moves and creates a reflection that is enough to let the birds know that this is not something that they can fly through, that it is indeed an obstacle. Low cost and great. On the right-hand side, we have somebody applying tempera paint in a 2 by 2-inch pattern. That's a different kind of aesthetic and also extremely effective and very cost efficient for entities to employ. We have a lot of daycares and places like that that use children's art to also reduce bird collisions. And it can be a fun community building project for the kids with a sense of purpose, with immediate benefits. We don't always have instant gratification when it comes to conservation work. This is one place where we do. We mark the glass, we turn off the lights, and we instantly see a decrease in bird collisions. Here's a more, maybe a more professional aesthetic look for some buildings. Another low-rise building where we have a dot pattern that's a 2-inch by 2-inch grid. From a distance, it's not even that easy to see, but it is seen well enough by the birds to almost eliminate bird collisions. And it still looks very aesthetically pleasing to the tenants. External screens or netting is also an effective way to reduce bird collisions or almost eliminate them. So we have many different options, some of which you may already have on some of your windows, such as screens. So just a quick note about what doesn't work. Products that are farther than 2 inches apart. So products that are applied farther than 2 inches apart are not successful at reducing bird collisions. And you can see the hawk silhouette on the left-hand side. I wish they worked. They didn't. They don't. And then on the right-hand side, although I give the person who took this picture credit for keeping their cats indoors, there's also a source of bird fatalities. Their decals on the outside surface of the glass are just too far apart to really be effective to reduce bird collisions. We need to be 2 inches by 2 inches apart. And again, these need to be on the exterior surface of the glass and not on the interior. That's where the reflections are, and that's where the birds are. So I talked about glass and what we can do there. Still going to talk about energy efficiency in a little bit, but how about lighting? Well, as I mentioned, lighting can really draw in migratory birds to any lit facility. And that can include street lights or decorative landscape lighting or the interior light that's escaping to the external areas. And what we really need to do is use light when and where it's needed and not beyond that. So if we can limit light to when we need it and where we need it, that is the most effective thing from a bird conservation perspective, from a protection of night skies, and from an energy conservation perspective as well. So you can see in this diagram on the left, we have on the far left, we see a street light that is illuminating the area above it and next to it where it really isn't needed. So that's to demonstrate the problematic lighting. Next one over, it demonstrates the timing aspect of it. We can use thermal detectors or timers to make sure that the lights are really, or motion sensors, to really make sure that that light is only used when it's needed. And then the last two are really showing a down-shielded light that demonstrates how we can keep light where we need it, which provides the safety that we might need, the illumination, but also prevents escape into the areas around that, and thereby increasing the attraction of migratory birds. And on the right, just a slide to demonstrate that closing blinds can be very useful and helpful for reducing the amount of light that escapes into the exterior, but we still do see bird collisions if the reflections on the outside surface of the glass are not addressed. So while the blinds closed here demonstrate that light has not escaped much during the day, they still see reflections of habitat that birds confuse and then cause collisions. Slide. Some facilities I want to point out are designed this way to reduce lighting and only use it where needed, to use bird-friendly glass, and that it's not just the landscape lighting that's important. This particular facility is one of our national wildlife refuges, which has great lighting along some of the trails and in the parking lots, etc. So it's not just at the building, but it's the facility itself too. So things to think about, that this can be done in an aesthetically pleasing way and in an energy efficient way and in a way that protects night skies and migratory birds. So let's talk a little bit more about this energy efficiency. As I've been mentioning, some of these bird collision prevention products can actually reduce bird collisions as well. And this has been done not just at a small scale, but at quite large scales. If anyone has been to New York City and the Javits Center, that's one of my favorite examples of a building that is huge and very beautiful and lots of glass. But they have installed fritted glass, as you can see over on the left-hand side, which has really reduced the solar heat gain in the gathering areas of that building and has really helped to mitigate the peak cooling as well. So when you have times of year where everybody's using their air conditioning and there's really a peak need for energy, these products can really decrease the need to use air conditioning during some of those times. So it can be extremely beneficial to energy consumption, to reducing energy consumption, reducing those heating and cooling costs, as well as for reducing bird collision significantly. So that's one example right there. It is accepted at beautiful large buildings with high visitation by professionals. That and it's really an exciting opportunity. And some of these buildings have actually included these products as part of their business model. And so they're proud of the products that they're using and the ability to simultaneously save energy, be efficient, be aesthetically pleasing, and reduce bird collisions. So it's a growing opportunity, and it's a growing acceptance, and I'm pretty excited about it. The second column here of pictures shows a film that can go on the external surface of glass that is like a bus wrap. So if anyone has ridden a bus lately with bus wrap, you know that you can see out just fine, but people aren't able to see in. And again, you're reducing that solar heat gain by the film on the external surface of the glass. This can be printed in a diversity of aesthetics. Some people just use simple white. Some people are printing actual photographs. They've had photography contests to see which photographs they want on the side of their building. And some people have beautiful artwork. So it's really, there are a lot of options, endless options for what you might have printed on it. And it provides not only the reduction of solar heat gain, but also bird safety and human safety as well. There's the inability to see into the building, but as you can see down here, you can see out of the building just fine. Slide here. So there are several types of glass as well, such as etching and fritting and new technologies in glass types. You can see some block glass down here. And all of these have potential to be energy efficient as well as to reduce bird collisions, so that the opportunities are numerous. I want to talk a little bit more about films and the diversity of films. You can see here on our right, this is one of our National Wildlife Refuges, Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge in Ohio. And they chose to put different birds that they showcase on their National Wildlife Refuge on these individual tiles that were involved in bird fatalities. And again, you can see out of these windows, it allows light to come in, but it does not allow birds to collide, and it does offer some energy savings as well. Over here on the left, this is a visitor center for a state park in Michigan, and they chose a simple white film. This was done a while ago. I think they maybe didn't realize the many options that they had. They chose a simple white film, and if anybody does like watching birds and and enjoy seeing them close up. This is a suet feeder where a pileated woodpecker likes to come and just eat suet, and children stand right on the other side of the glass, invisible to the bird, but they can thoroughly enjoy seeing a pileated woodpecker up close, which I'm an adult and I completely enjoyed it as well. So it's a really neat opportunity to get close to birds in this situation. So again, this is from the inside. You can see that you can obviously see out of the glass very well, but people can't see in. You can also see some hawk silhouettes up here. They, the Nature Center or the Visitor Center realized that didn't work. And so that's why they installed the film. So they left the hawk silhouettes up there, but they don't work. And that's why they went forward with the film. This is an example of that same type of film product applied to an elementary school that is their cafeteria. And they wanted increased security for the children in that school. And they didn't want people to be able to see in very well. And so in that process of protecting children and providing additional safety, they also increased school spirit and school pride, which they happen to have a blue jay as their mascot, and they also increased bird safety and energy efficiency in their effort. And so multi-purpose and can serve many different purposes in the bird conservation and energy efficiency being two that we're focusing on today. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Brian, who will talk more about some of the successes that we've had and the other opportunities. Thank you, Brian.
Great, thank you, Joelle. Hi everyone, welcome, and thank you for listening in today. So talking a little bit about the successes we've had. This is a photo of the McCormick Place, and about a little over a year, when was that? October of 2023, so a little over a year ago. You may have heard in the news, international, they had a massive bird collision kill. It was almost 1,000 birds in one night at this facility. And they had a chronic problem there annually. They'd been monitoring for over 40 years, and they knew they were killing about 1,200 birds a year, spring and fall migration total. And so 1,000 in one night was a big issue. So we actually approached them and said, hey, we've got some solutions. Let's work together to try to figure out what to do. And we took a two-pronged approach. We basically talked to them about the glass, as Joelle talked about, but we also talked about the lights program that they have and the lighting program and regimen that they have. They had limited ability to change much in terms of their lighting because of the age of the building at this point in time, but they were able to change how much light was escaping the building, which in turn also they were doing that through curtains and internal curtains, which was reducing the amount of heat that was coming in. So again, reducing that heat, that solar gain. But then they also treated the exterior part of the glass, and I'm not going to say too much other than to say it's been massively successful. They just went through their first migration, and it has worked very well. We're not tracking the energy savings on this building particularly. We were more concerned about the annual bird mortalities that they're having, but they see the differences in what they're doing in their operations and have incorporated this into kind of their plans moving forward. If and when they renovate, which they're planning to, they're going to incorporate bird conservation and bird friendly glass in probably some films moving forward, just because they see the benefits not only for the bird conservation but for the energy conservation as well. Go ahead, Joe. Can you advance? There you go. There you go. All right, thanks. And so the one neat thing about this is we've seen this type of activity become a very community engaging event. We've had examples of people coming to refuges to volunteer to help, National Wildlife Refuges coming to help install. We've had teams come from across the country to help learn and install at various places. Volunteers. We've had community engagement projects where they do art contests to do temporary paint on the windows to make it removable, but also engaging art instilling art into the community, and allowing kids or people to enjoy that opportunity or that activity while conserving birds. And so we've seen some integration of these types of concepts into, I'll just generically call it green school programs, But we see, we also looked at a lot of programs out there that are green school certification programs in various states where this isn't an option. This hasn't become an option yet, where bird conservation and treating glass to help local wildlife populations or increase biodiversity or conserve biodiversity, while also gaining energy savings. We haven't seen a lot of that uptake, and so this is one of those places where we see a huge opportunity to do a lot of co-benefits around this type of work. Go ahead, Joel. So, and where we've also seen a lot of traction and we're seeing a tremendous amount of momentum here recently is outreach and social media, and really we're seeing a lot of people sharing the message for us. We spent a lot of time working across multiple organizations and agencies, working on honing our messages. And when we have good news, we can share messages in a very community way. And now we have people that are telling the story for us or making recommendations for us that are based on many of the messages that we're providing across this broad network. And then we've also worked with partners to start to develop curricula that are available to schools to begin to basically create that beginning resource that people they can build from and learn more about, and start to engage in schools in a different way in teaching about this from early ages on. So go ahead, Joel. So yeah, so there are many reasons for optimism. So Joel mentioned earlier, we've lost 3 billion birds over a 50-year time span. During that same time span, we have several groups of species that have done very well, that have actually increased their populations: waterfowl, raptors, many of those. And that's really been from policy inputs and habitat, like very directed habitat investments for these groups of species. This is the same type of concept. Bird collisions is a very wide-ranging, it cuts across nearly every taxa of bird that we find in America. And so this is one of those places where if we invest time and energy and focus on the co-benefits of energy conservation and biodiversity conservation, we can really make a huge impact across a wide swath of birds. I mean, just looking at this diagram, you think about ways to at the upfront, when you're thinking about either a major renovation or designing a building, if you can build in energy conservation and think about biodiversity conservation in the footprint that you're going to have, it's a massive win for both of those places. So yeah, I mean, if we can work together on building that momentum, which we're seeing a tremendous amount of momentum building around this right now. But if we take those next steps, we can really do a lot more over the short term with all the investments we have in renovation of and building of many of our structures over the near term. So go ahead, Joel. So yeah, what I'll say is that I mentioned a lot about the momentum. That's happening in a multitude of ways. We're talking about messaging, where like this selection of logos you see here. These are cut across many sectors of government, private organizations, NGOs, universities. We're working together to find where we have overlap and can work on collision issues with lighting issues, artificial light at night, so we can try to reduce that for not only night viewing but bird conservation. So really focusing across all of this and gaining momentum in these different arenas that we really haven't worked in, but we're going to all of these folks and trying to find where we have that overlap, so we can get the co-benefits of what they're working on along with bird conservation. And we're even seeing it in many communities where we're starting to see local ordinances come online that are taking bird conservation into account. So go ahead, Joel. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So just like, just if we use the phrase windows of opportunity here, since we're talking a lot about glass, we can really, with a little bit of upfront planning, we can really pull in that energy efficiency and energy cost savings and gain a lot of other co-benefits for bird conservation and other wildlife. As Joel mentioned, there are a diverse number of options that are available for existing buildings, where if you're not planning a major renovation or anything, that we can use that are low cost, or we can find money for it, that will reduce collisions. And then, it's one of those things you might start seeing even more momentum around local ordinances. So where some of this work will become mandatory to incorporate that sort of thing in. So if you're starting to hear that, you may want to pay close attention to it, because it could gain a lot of traction. We've seen things in Washington, D.C. that are coming online, I think in 1st of January. New York City just took some online to focus on buildings moving forward, that sort of thing. So it's starting to filter out to some of the bigger city, and even like city of Madison, Wisconsin has a new ordinance that's, for new buildings being built, make it bird friendly, less impact on birds. So, and then we're seeing a lot of interest in a lot of corporations and other entities that are building into their sustainability models for biodiversity and public image, management of public image. So we're just seeing that incorporation of all that sort of thing. So next slide, please. And then also, if you want to take these steps, we have a growing number of educational materials, outreach materials that we can share, or you can take and modify, that would help. But it really, a lot of these are trying to engage the local community and the local societal benefits of bird conservation. But you can tailor that to deliver those messages however you want. But we think if with a little bit of upfront planning, you can really pull in a lot of these co-benefits that we're talking about today. So and I'm going to leave it right there, Joelle. Fix any mess that I may have made or anything that I may have missed, but please go ahead and cover anything. But otherwise, we'd welcome any questions and love to continue the conversation. So.
Did a great job. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you adding those last sections there. And it's a very exciting topic to work on. And as I mentioned, it doesn't just conserve energy and increase energy efficiency. It works on bird conservation and the well-being of people and children. I was just on an airplane last night sitting next to a lady, and I told her what I did, and she said, "Oh, I work in this big, beautiful building, and I hear thumps all day long." And she was clearly distressed by that. And as I mentioned, people like birds, and this is a well-being issue as well. It's a human health issue. And so I'm happy to be able to contribute to this. And again, as Brian said, happy to entertain any questions that might be out there as well.
Well, great. We actually just got our first question in the chat. I was going to ask you guys a question. So let me take this one first, and then I will circle back with mine. Folks, please go ahead and enter any questions that you have for Joelle and Brian in the chat. We do have a few minutes that we can take questions. So the first question that we do have is, does any tinting work better than none?
Yes, and as assuming that's the Heidi I know, thank you for answering that, Heidi. And tinting, it may reduce the light escape at night, but if there's a reflection on the outside surface of the glass, the birds will be confused by that. And so it is important to reduce that reflection, and often the tinting is not effective to do for that purpose. Tinting, as I mentioned, we've been talking about lighting quite a bit. And one of the things that Brian and I and Heidi have been involved in is our summit that we had about a year ago. No, it was not a year ago yet. It was last February. And just maybe feels like a year ago. And we brought together a lot of different entities that we didn't normally work with. And we are still collaborating with people to really bring together different views and different needs. And I did want to extend an invite before I forget, an invite to people on this call if they'd like to join our multi-sector collaboration, where we are talking about issues like this and trying to meet the needs of the people who are applying this on the ground and get guidance into people's hands, and to really raise the profile of this issue and to bring issues together. In the past, we kind of worked in our silo of bird collisions, light reduction, energy efficiency, and we're trying to combine all of those issues as well as human health and environmental justice, and really bring this together so that we're serving all different needs. And so if anyone's interested in joining that group, please reach out to one of us and we can put you in touch with the next meeting invite, etc. So But
Yeah.
on for the next question. Oh, go ahead,
I
Brian.
was gonna say, just to give you a flavor of the diverse number of organizations and groups we're working with. We have lighting engineers, we have city planners, we have architects, we have bird conservation professionals. I mean, we have a very broad spectrum of folks that are working on this issue, all from different angles. But we're trying to figure out how to get the co-benefits for all of us. So it's a really interesting group to work with. So I'll just leave it there. So.
Yes, it is. It is. So yes, I'm looking at a question. Is that the next one, do you think? Okay. General cost per square foot for film. It really depends on the type of film that you're using. And it also depends on who's installing it. So there are films that can be, you know, $2 to $3 dollars per square foot and up to, I remember here, maybe $7 per square foot. And then the installation cost can vary as well. So what we've been doing at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is we've trained our maintenance action teams to install it. And one of the pictures that Brian showed included one of our maintenance action teams applying it to our headquarters facility in Washington, D.C., applying a film. And they are trained. They are training other maintenance action teams and using existing videos, etc. And that pretty much halves the cost of the effort. So if you have in-house people who can install this, that can be very effective at reducing costs. Let's see,
I'll scroll back up to Joel and Brian. There was another question. Do you have any outreach information for universities? I know the one I put in the chat was K-12. If you have anything specific that you would recommend.
I just put a university toolkit link in the chat, and it goes, and Joel, you helped, I think you pulled this together, or helped pull it together, but it covers everything from monitoring to figure out where the collision issues are, where your highest risk buildings are, to what you could do about it. And Joel, you cover it better, so.
Oh yeah, I think that was great, and thank you for putting that link in the chat. I view this as a living document and a living toolkit. So we may be adding things in the future, but the intent was to help people understand the issue, help them understand if they wanted to monitor. In general, we say if there's glass, there's going to be collisions, but there are some areas that do seem to be a higher risk for migratory birds, and some entities such as university management or a building manager may say, okay, prove to me we have a problem. And so that may include some monitoring requirements. And so although Fish and Wildlife Service, we tend to say, save your time and your money and treat glass instead of monitor. But in the cases where you do need to monitor, there's some monitoring protocol in there, as well as some outreach materials and you know, how to approach university leadership, etc., to make progress on this issue. Thanks for putting that in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. Another question we had from a participant is that they run a small NGO and represent a large Title I K-12 charter school in the inner city, and they're interested in obtaining funding. I will close out as a reminder of this webinar of our upcoming application that can fund improvements to K-12 schools. But Joelle and Brian, is there anything that you guys want to share in terms of opportunities specific to the conversation today around windows and doors?
I'm going to ultimately defer to Brian on this. He explains this better than I do, but I will say that we are aware that this is a gap that we want to help fill. There are some opportunities out there now, such as in the Northeast. There were some funding opportunities to treat glass. I think it was a NIFWF, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation type grant. And we are looking forward to developing this further. But I'm going to turn it over to Brian. You may have some additions to that.
Yeah, that is very accurate. This is the one place where we are lacking right now, is trying to help. We're trying to help identify that need because it's such a large problem. You know, think about all the glass that's out there on the landscape, you know, not just including businesses, but homes as well. So it's a huge problem, but there are places like you just mentioned, Andrea, that you know, there are grants out there, but they're going to be very specific. But where we have seen the most traction is developing relationships with a local corporation, a community, building that community to pull this into some sort of sustainability initiative for the community where there's, that philanthropy piece to it, where they're like, oh, this would be a good thing to help the biodiversity in the area. We see that. And so it's been that local philanthropy type piece, or local or state governments providing grant opportunities through various mechanisms they have. There are various states that have lottery pools, lottery money that they do, various environmental granting things that you could help work to build this into, that sort of thing. So it's just, it's a very, it seems to be a very state by state or program by program, like Andrea said, that it's great that those opportunities are there for K through 12 schools, but that may not be the case for other places, like other businesses or other buildings that we have on the landscape. So local community and local businesses that are very philanthropic is probably one of the best places to look right now. So, but we are trying to raise that profile on this issue within Congress, where they could create more grant programs, apply to more places. But it takes time. It's an uphill push. So.
And I would like.
Yeah, go ahead, Joelle.
I was just going to quickly remind that some of these options for reducing bird collisions are extremely inexpensive, such as the tempera paint, etc. So that, and for a school, I could see that being a really nice option. Okay, go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, one of the other questions I think dovetails well with what you were saying, Brian. So Lucy had asked, is there an existing data at the local or state level to see the scale of the issue in your own? And I imagine if you're going to try to go to philanthropy or your local community groups to advocate for their participation and support, that having that data behind it might be helpful. So my guess is you have that, and maybe we didn't put that link in the chat, but is that something you all track even at the state level that people could take advantage of?
Joel, you know better than me. That's another gap that we have. We talked about that recently at a meeting in Chicago, where there are data across the country being gathered by various monitoring groups. We were focused mostly on kind of the Chicago general area when we were talking about this conversation, but this is a national issue where we're trying to. People gather data in different ways, but then they also archive data in different ways. So we're trying to figure out how to take that information and put it into accessible data across, like a usable platform. That's a heavy lift, but it's something that we need. But the interesting thing about this is sometimes you don't need data. You can point to this. There are enough studies out there on this issue and enough examples out there that people have had personal experience with to say, this is an issue. It kills 1 billion birds a year in the US alone. How do we now, we can't step that down to local, but we do have some places where we've done some quick monitoring. We know their issues. How can we build this into our community as a whole is something that we want to address. So you may not need hard data, but you might be able to organize some groups to gather some quick data to say, yeah, this is an issue that we can deal with. We have solutions. So.
I would just add to that. Okay, I'll just add that real quick, because I know you have some follow up too, Andrea. That there are a few publicly available websites, iNaturalist, I guess it's more of an app, where people can enter some of those data, but also Fatal Light Awareness Program, FLAP, has an international database, a map, an interactive map where you can enter in data where you have found, thank you, Heidi, birdmapper.org. I couldn't remember what it was called. I call it the FLAP app. And that allows you to really, it's kind of neat to interact in a way with people all over the world who are experiencing this issue and to enter your own data. Thank goodness Heidi's on the call, helping us with questions in the chat.
Yeah, this is great. I love it. The last question I think I was going to ask, which actually dovetails with Emma's question in here, she asks about, using the terminology bird strikes versus bird collision. I think my larger overarching question that I think gets at that too is like if I'm a university or a school district or anyone, I was like probably more on the owner side looking and knowing I need to do window renovations, what's like your top thing or top two things that you should ask your design consultants as you go to make sure that they are taking this into consideration? Like what's the right question to ask them? And then the phrasing maybe, and I'll leave it at that and see what you guys have as in terms of a recommendation.
I'm not sure that I completely understand the question. Do you have it, Brian?
I think so, but I would
Okay.
simplify it for a late in the afternoon person that's had a lot of meetings today. That'd be great.
That's okay. That's okay.
So I think the question is, if you were in a situation where there was a new building being constructed,
yep,
and if you wanted to make sure that birds were considered in that process, what would be some of the main points that you would go for? And I would definitely start with having bird safe glass, which can also be energy efficient. Some of those fritted glass or those ceramic inlays. And if you're not going to use something like that, then to use, for example, many residences, they're advised to put in your windows first and then treat with a dot type matrix pattern on the outside. So I would say 2x2 grid or a bird safe glass on the exterior would be the first thing to make sure of. And then the second thing would be to limit the escape of light and minimize lighting as a whole, meaning light when and where. What did I miss? And then educate. If you could ask for three things, to educate and be proud of that work, as it does increase well-being for the tenants and energy efficiency and sustainability.
Yeah, and I would add another one in there, maybe even at the front, is really consideration of your design and how much glass do you really need? How much, what angles can you maybe use, or what there are some beautiful buildings out there that put things in front of the glass as more of an artistic approach, but it makes it bird safe. Or at least more bird friendly. So it's even zooming back out before you even go to the bird safe glasses. Think about your design, because we're in the placement of your building and what are attractants around there, and think about the external lighting as well. Be really intentional with your lighting. Just because it's energy efficient doesn't mean it's bird safe or night sky friendly. So
good point.
So
yeah, this is great. I mean, this is a little more for like new construction, and as you have the ability to do a whole modernization, but that window to wall ratio is so important. And I love that all of these conversations are interconnected, right? It's both about the energy efficiency. You hear folks wanting to get to net zero school buildings, which can also have such a positive impact on reducing those bird collisions. So I love that we don't have to talk about them separately and that they all can have such a positive impact on each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of the incorporation of this up front, it doesn't add a lot of cost up front.
Right.
You can build it in and think about it in the beginning. But if you have to come in at the end and start changing things, or do retrofits at the end because you've built a problem building, then it can add to your costs a bit more. So I did say something about average life of film and special maintenance. It honestly, that depends on the film. I know one of the product that you use, like to use an example, the dot pattern that Joelle's mentioned a few times, from the company that we've installed on several refuges, that the warranty is for 10 years. The product typically will last longer than that unless it's in like direct sun, real intense heat. But even then, it's warranted for 10 years. But then the special maintenance is usually, you have to apply it correctly. There's a parameter of conditions that you need to apply it in. But then also washing it is, you don't want to use a pressure washer 2 inches away from the window. You go to a different washing and maintenance where you simply you use more window washers with a lighter touch, basically. So. But they walk you through all of that type of stuff to make sure that you install it properly to get the longevity out of it that you want, and then get the keep up with the maintenance so it doesn't impact the product. So
This is great. Well, thank you both for joining. We just have 3 quick slides, excuse me, to round us out. I love that discussion, and I think it dovetails a lot with what we're trying to accomplish at the Renew America Schools program. So just wanted to close out the webinar by reminding folks that at DOE, we do have a teaming partner list. It is live. It's been available for a little over a year now, and we continue to build it and update it every couple weeks. The intent here is really to help school district staff as you are looking to do a window project or any other type of energy efficiency project. The different types of partners are available for you to reach out to and use as a resource. So both encourage partners that are on this call to add themselves to this list, and for school districts, absolutely could apply to universities that might be on this call. Use it as a great resource for you, and this can be found on our website as well. If we go to the next slide, just like this webinar, we have done past webinars. We did a really great series on the tax credits that are available through the Inflation Reduction through the IRS. You can find those under our TA and resources as you scroll through our website. We did one on May 7th, sort of a 101 on tax credits called Beyond Grants. And then May 30th, we did a much deeper dive into those tax credits, and there are tax consultants on there and a school district talking about their experience. We also held a webinar back in March with our loan program office to talk about that as an opportunity for bridge financing and additional financing opportunities. So please check those out. The recordings and the slides are available. And then just wanted to close with, as I mentioned at the beginning, we do anticipate opening a 3rd round of applications in 2025 for the Renew America Schools program. So stay tuned for that. Please sign up for updates. When you go to our website, there's a black box across there. Enter your email address and you'll get up-to-date information as to when those applications open. And then we do plan to host another webinar coming this winter in 2025 called the Power of Partnerships. We did this last year. It was really successful. We'll feature new types of partnerships, so stay tuned for that date, and it will be coming in the next coming months. So with that, I think we will wrap up the webinar. Thank you to Fish and Wildlife. This was a great collaboration. Excited to have host them, and please reach out with any additional questions. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.